how to bet Pacquiao Ugas, which takes place Saturday night here in Las Vegas, NFL preseason picks, and believe it or not, we have opening lines for NBA opening night. He's Tyler Fulghum, I'm Joe Fortenbaugh, all that and more coming up on today's installment of Bet. But first, a tremendous job on the fantasy coverage yesterday.
Well, thank you.
This
I
guy
appreciate that.
on the big channel getting raked over the coals by the Twitter heads who did not like the way you drafted that team.
I was fortunate to win the draft lottery and had the first pick, so that was an easy. Christian McCaffrey, and then when I picked Josh Allen over Patrick Mahomes specifically as QB1, that's when Stephania Bell and Matthew Berry tried to tear me down, baby. But it was fun.
More coverage in all regards, especially from a football standpoint. If you want to check us out on youtube.com/ESPN Sports Betting, our NFL previews are up there. We have a lot of college previews up there. And speaking of college, that is where we begin right now with our countdown to kickoff. We have covered each of the Power 5 conferences, giving you our thoughts on win totals, giving you our thoughts on who will win the conference. But now we move away from the Power 5 to the oh-so-beloved action that will be coming your way sooner rather than later. So here's where we're going to go. Let's start with the win totals on the east side of the MAC. And one thing you will notice is that this would be determined by many to be a slightly weaker version of the conference. Doesn't mean the entire portion's weak. As you see Buffalo up there at 7.5. They were your runner-up last year in 2019, losing in the MAC championship game, but working our way through. Bowling Green and Akron, well, you'll be betting against them
Usually
plenty
like to
this
pick
year.
on them.
Oh, yeah, quite a bit. Now, let's take a look at the other side of the MAC, which would be the West. And right there is where you're going to have the defending champions of Ball State sitting at 7.5, but they're not at the top of the list. It's the Rockets of Toledo at 8.5. And then your various Michigans from Central to East to West to North to Midwest, you name it, you got it. Just a few years ago, Northern Illinois was a
they were a powerhouse
back then, and now they find
things
themselves
have
in the
changed.
cellar. So here's where we're going to begin. Toledo has the highest win total of any at 8.5 in the entire conference, but they've got the third best odds to win the conference at plus 450. They're trailing Buffalo, who's plus 280, and Ball State at plus 350. So let's start with who you're betting to win the MAC. I don't want to talk win totals just yet. We'll get to that. Who would you bet to win this conference?
I'm going to bet on a team that's not really favored. It's one of the directional Michigan schools.
Ooh.
And I'm a West guy. I moved west. We're now out here out west. Western Michigan is the team I'm going to bet at 10-1. I guess this seems like it's a wide open. Yeah, a nice little payout here. But this seems like it's a more wide open version of the MAC than we've seen in recent years. Buffalo has been such a good school, and we might talk about them, but they've had a lot of turnover. Western Michigan might have the best quarterback in the entire MAC. His name is Caleb Ellaby, and last year he was third in the nation in all of FBS football in passing efficiency behind only Mac Jones and Zach Wilson. Heard of them? They turned into first-round NFL draft picks. Not saying Ellaby is going to be that, but that's the talent that he brings. Big arm, mobility, can create plays off script. The guy last year in 6 games accounted for 22 touchdowns, 18 through the air, and 4 on the ground. And that was his first year as starter. Now with a full functional offseason without as many hindrances from the pandemic as last year, I think LB could lift them from the middle of the pack in the MAC to the top.
I like it. There were a lot of favorites played through the Power 5 because there's only so many options there. Like, are you going to bet against Alabama? And if so, you're going to take a team like Georgia. I'll see your 10-1 and I'll raise you. I'll go to 14-1.
What?
Give me the Kent State Golden Flashes. There's 2 reasons to like this, one of which is their path to cashing this 14-1 ticket. We showed you the East versus the West earlier. The East, very weak. Buffalo is a weak top seed in the East. They lost their entire coaching staff very late in the game. They took the Les Miles vacancy over in Kansas, so they had to replace the coaching staff quickly. You had a bunch of turnover with the transfer portal, as Tyler was alluding to earlier. Buffalo's going to be down, and you're in a division with Akron and Bowling Green who are going to be bringing up the rear. So there's really only a couple horses who are in this race here. So you get to the MAC championship game where you're likely going to be overmatched, but with a ticket of 14-1, you can hedge off that. Great opportunity to guarantee yourself a profit. Oh, by the way, Kent State bringing back 18 starters from last year's team, including star quarterback Dustin Crum, who leads one of the best offenses in the MAC. Very deep on the offensive line as well. So That would be what we're thinking for prices in terms of winning the MAC. When you go into the win totals, over, under, what popped out?
Well, if I have the Western Michigan Bronx as a team that could win the MAC, and their win total we saw was just 6, I'm probably going to go over that as well.
Attaboy.
Correlation is key here. So over 6. Let's start with their schedule. They have 2, I think, winnable Power 5 non-conference road games. At Michigan, sorry, Jim Harbaugh, your team doesn't scare me anymore.
Jimmy.
And at Pittsburgh, Pat Narduzzi, your team doesn't really scare me that much anymore. So 2, I'm not saying they will win, but those aren't
winnable.
Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma type non-conference road games. They get Ball State at home. They avoid Ohio and Miami of Ohio on the schedule, 2 of the, better teams on the eastern side. And again, Caleb Ellaby, I think is going to be one of the better quarterbacks, not just in the MAC, but maybe in the entire country this season. So 10-1 to win, over 6 on the win total.
I'm going to have to get you a Western Michigan jersey for the season. You are heavily invested. When it comes to win totals, I'm going to go under on the aforementioned Buffalo Bulls. Don't tell my wife or my in-laws because they all went there, but they're used to the slander by now, so it shouldn't be much of a surprise. This is a direct result of what we talked about earlier, losing the entire coaching staff and 10 players to the transfer portal. Buffalo hired Maurice Linguist as their head coach. He could be a good head coach, but he's never been a head coach before. He was coaching defensive backs for the Dallas Cowboys last season. That's a bit of an issue. And this win total went from 8.5 down to 8, down to 7.5. So the money is coming in against Buffalo. Ultimately, they're still sitting there as the favorites in the East. I think that's a mistake, which we talked about. So under 7.5 wins for the Buffalo Bulls. Speaking of a bull, raging bull, a.k.a. Manny Pacquiao, there's really no other way to transition. As we move into boxing here in Las Vegas, Saturday night from T-Mobile Arena. Manny Pacquiao is going to be taking on Yordenis Ugas this Saturday, August 21st. And for more on that, Mike Coppinger, who covers mixed martial arts and boxing for ESPN, kind enough to join us here on Bet. Mike, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us. We'll start with this. You wrote a great piece on .com Wednesday explaining why Ugas took the Pacquiao fight on just 11 days' notice because he had already been training for a fight with Fabian Maidana. If Ugas hadn't been training, what was going to be the backup plan for Pacquiao once Errol Spence had to back out of this fight due to an eye injury?
There really would not have been any backup plan. They would have been scrambling. PBC had Ugas fighting Maidana for that very purpose, as a backup contingency plan. We have COVID going around. We've had a lot of boxing matches canceled by COVID, so they knew that Ugas could step in on short notice, and he's done so many times before.
All right, Mike, when you look at the difference in the fighters, Pacquiao was going to face Errol Spence. He was going to be an underdog in that matchup against Spence. Now he goes to a prohibitive favorite against Ugas, laying 360 as the favorite. How might Pacquiao's fight strategy, how might the way that he challenges Ugas differ from what his plan was going to be against a fighter like Spence?
Well, the 2 biggest differences really are, A, Errol Spence is a much better fighter than Ugas, and B, Spence is a southpaw, Ugas is orthodox. Pacquiao, of course, also a southpaw, so he's going to have to adjust to that. But this guy's 42 years old. He's one of the all-time greats. I don't think it's really that tough of an adjustment for him. The biggest thing, Ugas is a really good inside fighter, and Pacquiao's going to have to watch out for that right hook to the body on the inside.
Ugas is 26-4 through 30 professional fights, but he has never been knocked out in any of those losses. This fight is currently minus 175 to go the distance, plus 125 to not make it to the cards. How would you bet that prop? Do you see this making it to a decision, or does one of the 2 fighters end it before we get there?
I love the play of the fight going the distance. Pacquiao, yes, he's a big puncher, but not really anymore. He scored a knockout of Miguel Cotto in 2009. His next stoppage wasn't until Lucas Matisse, a shell of himself, in 2017. Ugas, like you mentioned, very durable fighter. I think this does go the distance, and I would hammer that line.
Mike, I think a lot of people want to know, will Pacquiao ever get the chance to fight Errol Spence again? There was a lot of excitement and build-up for this matchup. Pacquiao, a legend. Spence, one of the best pound-for-pound boxers currently in the entire world. We know that Spence had to back out with the eye injury. Will there be an opportunity for those 2 to finally meet in a ring?
Hey, if we're playing fantasy lines, I'm going to put it at about plus 400 that Pacquiao fights Spence. Pacquiao's gearing up for a presidential run in May in the Philippines. Obviously, if he's president, he can't fight. Errol Spence, I just spoke to him on Tuesday, and he's very optimistic he's going to fight again, but who knows? He's having film on the side of his eyes right now. His vision isn't great at the moment. He can't even run at the moment, so that's really up in the air. But Spence did tell me he just wants a crack at the winner.
Mike Coppinger, he covers mixed martial arts and boxing for ESPN. Kind enough to join us here on Bet. Thank you, Mike. Great stuff. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Running for president.
I guess you can't really hop inside a ring or a train if you're presiding over a civilization.
Manny, you can be president and then also take a few days off to have a fight because we all enjoy watching that, and then you can go back. Man, the guy is so busy. For all the money and success, he keeps busy. I would be the exact opposite. I'd be on the beach.
He's a recording artist as well. Yes. He's a fighter. He's a politician.
Oh, my God. Have you
he's
heard
a Renaissance man, Manny Pacquiao. he is a Renaissance man.
All right. From the Renaissance man that is Manny Pacquiao to the gridiron, NFL preseason action is back tonight. Only one game. It's the Patriots and the Eagles. New England laying 1. Total of 38. The game will be at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. Now, when I was out on Monday, you just went ahead and picked this game without me.
Well, Anita was in the house, and Anita always loves to talk preseason golf, so we got into all those things with her. When we discussed it on Monday, I was taking the under. It was 38 and a hook. It's come down to 38. Nothing's changed for me, Joe Fortenbaugh. The trend in the preseason, unders 14-3, 83%, something like that. So we see no reason to change that with this matchup. How do you feel about it?
I will be going the other way, and not because you are on the under. It's not a direct fade of you. It might be a slight fade of you. No, I do like the under here. I think that trend you bring up is important. 14-3, the unders are through the first 17 games of the preseason. That's insane. A lot of people know that. A lot of people probably want to hit the under. Bookmakers might know, but the adjustment that's been made, get this, through 17 preseason games, the first 17 had a closing total average of about 35.6. All the games in week 2 have a current average total of about 36.5, so it's gone up 1 point. Now, we should expect to see more starters. Offenses have had another week of work at practice, more of an opportunity to build out on that playbook, and you've got a lot of quarterbacks in this game who can move the ball down the field. Jalen Hurts and Joe Flacco from Philadelphia, Cam Newton and Mac Jones from New England. So ultimately, I'm going to play the over tonight. Not one I love. I hate when we're opposed, but it does make for a good roulette bet. So number 1 of the day, you and I opposed on that one. Moving ahead, Friday, we're going to see the Kansas City Chiefs laying 3, total of 41. They're in Arizona taking on the Cardinals. Apparently, you and Anita didn't talk about this one behind my back. So feel free to share your thoughts.
All right, so this is the first time you're hearing my thoughts on Kansas City, Arizona.
All right.
Again, I'm going to ride the under. It's 41. It's a high total for a preseason game. Usually we're in the mid to high 30s, but Kansas City and Arizona are two teams we know with very capable offenses that will play at a fast pace, Arizona especially. And if you recall Arizona's Week 1 preseason matchup, it was with the Dallas Cowboys, and the total was like 39.5.
One of the biggest.
I went under that as well because I think this line is more reflective of regular season Kansas City Chiefs and Arizona Cardinal football. It's just too high for the preseason. These are two teams that have very comfortable, competent play callers, comfortable, competent players at the quarterback position they don't need to see out there. All the main contributors you'd see in the regular season are likely going to see very little playing time in this preseason game, so it's all the backups, all the third stringers. Guys like Cliff Kingsbury and Andy Reid are not going to show their hand when it comes to new wrinkles they've added to their offensive scheme, new play calls that they want to debut in the regular season. So watered down vanilla offenses that have really nothing to show or prove in the preseason because we know what they're going to be in the regular season. The Chiefs, they're going to be good. The Cardinals, they're probably going to be good. They're definitely going to play fast. So 41, way too high for a preseason game. The same logic I used to go under and cash with Arizona and Dallas in week 1, I will use with Arizona and Kansas City in week 2.
This is a bit awkward because
what are you doing here?
I'm going to be going against you on this one as well. I will play over 41 total points. Let's see if you can flick it up so it drops into the camera there. All right, yeah, that worked out. Look at us. Just instant panic to that. Except for the fact that we're picking against each other on every single game. All right, so this is what's called Joe Fortenbaugh chasing steam. The total for this game started at 37 and has since been bet up to 41. That's a big move. That's called getting steam. Steam can be an over and under. It could be a side. You could watch Arizona go from +3 to -3. That would be steam. Why am I chasing the steam? Well, it went from 37 to 41 because Andy Reid came out and said starters are going to play in the first half. Now, that doesn't mean Patrick Mahomes is playing for the first full half, but we don't need him to play for the full half to get the 41. If we need to get the 55, yeah, we probably want him there. Andy Reid lifetime in the preseason has had overs hit at a 55% rate. Not the type of thing you're going to go running and shouting from the mountaintops, but that is profitable long term because you need to hit about 53% to break even against the juice. And ultimately, we're going to play the over here. We're going to chase some steam. We're going to ride with those Kansas City starters. Hopefully, Cliff Kingsbury figures a couple things out, but that shouldn't be in the handicap because Cliff Kingsbury has figured very little out. In fact, some offshore books have listed him as the first coach to be fired as the odds-on favorite. Not the odds-on favorite, one of the key favorites, though.
Sure.
So keep that one in mind, but I will play over. Now, let's see in game number 3 how we're going to play on this one. Baltimore, also known as the Ravens. This game is Saturday. They're laying 3. Total is 35.5 in Carolina to take on Sam Darnold and the Panthers.
I'm going to go ahead and flip this to you because I know where you stand on this bad boy. I am not a fool. That's all I'm going to say. I am not a fool. A fool wouldn't
Yet to be determined.
A fool wouldn't recognize the 18-game win streak for the Baltimore Ravens in the preseason. A fool wouldn't recognize the 16-1-1 record against the spread in those 18 games for the Baltimore Ravens dating back to 2016, I believe. So that is the only trend I need to see. I will not bet against the Baltimore Ravens. I'll either bet on them or pass. And since we're not passing here in this bad boy, I am betting on the Ravens. Now, it was 3.5. It's come down to 3. I didn't really like it at 3.5. That's obviously a key number in football, even in the preseason. But at 3, I'm more willing to jump on the Ravens side. When it was 3.5, I was Ravens money line. So money line's -160. If that makes you feel more comfortable than the -3, I understand. But either way, now that it's down to 3, I would play the Ravens side. I would take, of course, the Ravens on the money line because of that John Harbaugh trend, that dominant trend of Baltimore in the preseason. They are like the Harlem Globetrotters and everyone else is the Washington Generals. When it comes to preseason football, that's just what has been borne out, what has been proven over the last 4 or 5 years. So money line, -160. I'll take away the spread. I just think, like Al Davis, not a Raven, would say, they just win, baby, in the preseason.
We should probably put a dinner or some margaritas or something on this slate of games because the roulette bet isn't going to be enough. I'll be going the other direction. I will be taking the points with the Carolina Panthers in this matchup. Call me a fool. Some apparently have already alluded to it based on previous analysis, but that is neither here nor there. Tyler's analysis is actually very important when you factor in why I'm going this way on this bet. A lot of people have been talking about this Ravens record. It is a very popular story because it is a very impressive feat for what they've done. But if we know about it, the bookmakers know about it. And if the bookmakers know about it, they know that people are going to want to bet the Ravens because they've been so successful. As a result, they're going to adjust the line accordingly. You're not going to be able to find value on Baltimore. It means you might not find value on Carolina either, but in this instance, I'm going to take a shot. Remember, Carolina's starters went in and had the lead at halftime against Indianapolis last week. It's a pretty formidable Colts team. And this Ravens team, for all the wins and success, I don't want to downplay it, but it's not as if they're blowing people out of the water like Alabama does on a weekly basis in college football. They were trailing through 3 quarters against the Saints last week before they scored a touchdown with about 7 minutes to play to win and cover. Now, again, they deserve plenty of credit for that. Tyler's right. This is one of the most impressive streaks that you could possibly find given the uncertainty that takes place in the preseason with so many players that are such unknown commodities. But ultimately, when this is said and done, I want Carolina and I want those points in my pocket. And if I end up being wrong, well, I probably won't mention it again because I'll move on to another bet that I'll lose, and that's the beauty of this business. There are more bets at every single turn.
Listen, we can thread this needle here. I took the Ravens on the money line. You got 3 points in your pocket. A nice Baltimore 18-17 win, a nice Baltimore 22-20 win, and we buy each other a margarita.
I like that. I like that. As friends, we can sit down and have a conversation.
We can be fools together.
Yesterday when we did the threading of the needle on the Red Sox game, did we end up, I know the under hit for the game at 10.
No, it did not hit for me because
was it the
they
Red
scored
Sox
5 runs in the first 2 innings and did not score the rest of the first 5 innings.
What did you need? 5.5?
I did 5.5.
Oh,
so
you're so close. You had 5 right away.
Yeah, it was 4-1 after 2. And then I don't know if there was any scoring again until like super, super late in that game.
People watching wondering, what are you two talking about?
Daily
This is
Wager.
a Daily Wager
Daily Wager,
conversation that has spilled one studio down, but you can catch us Daily Wager tomorrow, special time, 12 noon
Catch him.
Eastern on ESPN2. What?
I catch him. I will be gallivanting about.
Yeah, he will be enjoying probably some margaritas quite early in the morning. All right, final game for the Pick'em. This is a Sunday game. It's the San Francisco 49ers laying 5.5, total of 34. They're going to be in Los Angeles taking on the Chargers.
At 5.5, I understand why, because Trey Lance will likely see a lot of reps as he gets acclimated to the NFL game.
A lot of PT.
Not a lot of PT, as Joe Fortenbaugh would say over there. But 5.5 is just a lot of points when the total is expected to be as low as 34. So on principle, and we discussed this last week on Bet, and it worked out, we looked at that 6-point spread between the Buccaneers and the Bengals. And I said, I don't care what happens. On principle and process alone, the only bet you can make is the Cincinnati Bengals. They won the game outright.
Outright.
This is not quite that, but it's close. 5.5 is just too much for a team, I think, that has depth and a capable backup quarterback in Chase Daniel, who's been around the block and can at least lead his team on some drives down the field. A Chargers coaching staff that I think is maybe a little bit more inclined than San Francisco's to install things more aggressively, since it is a new staff under Brandon Staley. So 5.5 on principle with the total this low. Two teams I think are evenly matched in the regular season and preseason. On principle, I gotta take the Chargers here.
Agreed.
Oh,
Look at
finally.
us. We finally got there.
I'll be damned.
Agreed. And I think you make a really great point there. There's such a low total in this game, and we're getting 5.5 with a pretty good Chargers squad. I'll take that. Kyle Shanahan is a wizard of a head coach, but this is the preseason, where lifetime he is 6-1 against the spread. Not a world beater like the Baltimore Ravens or Mike Zimmer, who's currently with the Minnesota Vikings. I could see this game going as follows. The 49ers look great in the first half, and then they fade in the second half. And if there's a first half line, that might be the angle for playing San Francisco, given the dynamic quarterback play they get from Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. But ultimately, for the full game, I'll take all those points. They're telling us with the total of 34.
Yeah, right.
Hey, it's going to be really low scoring. Here's a ton of points with the underdog. Okay, I'll take them. And again, if it doesn't hit, we're on to the next loser.
Even if it loses, it was the right bet to me. Process was right.
I'm with you on that. One thing we agree upon. Now, we turn our attention to the good word. It is Thursday. We like to play this game each and every Thursday to close out the week. It's very simple. A statement is read, and whatever thought comes into this dome and that dome first, write it down and explain. And hope that
What's
Sigmund
going on in those
Freud
domes?
And Sigmund Freud isn't paying attention to you. All
Couple
right.
of scary domes to walk around in.
So let's start with the National Basketball Association. The Los Angeles Lakers are 4.5-point favorites over the Golden State Warriors on opening night, October 19th.
Okay. This to me, as I almost knock my
Distraction.
It's a distraction to bet the total. The total's intriguing. I mean, I'm sorry, the side is intriguing.
Side's
But
intriguing.
it's a distraction from the bet you should be making, which is the total. 230.5 is too high for an LA Lakers Warriors game one of the season. We know the Lakers are a low-scoring defensive team. Even adding Russell Westbrook, Frank Vogel's ethos, his DNA, is defense. That's how they won a championship. And LeBron James at age 37 is not trying to run up and down the dang floor like he was at 23. He likes slow-paced teams. He runs slow-paced teams. I think the Warriors are going to be better defensively with Klay Thompson back to Draymond Green and the guys they drafted. So this is a distraction aside from the total, which you should be betting is under.
You know, speaking of the Warriors, I really hope that Bob Myers, the general manager, and Steve Kerr, the head coach, are willing to apologize to Draymond Green for Green yelling at Kevin Durant, which was one of the most amazing quotes of all time. I am going to go with uncertain. Do I need an I here?
Yeah.
I do need an I.
You need an I there.
That's that Missouri education coming through again. Uncertainty. I'd love to give you a bet here. I do agree with that under, but ultimately, how am I going to play the side? Who's going to play for Golden State? Is Jonathan Coppinger going to be ready to go? Is Moses Moody going to be ready to go? Is James Wiseman going to get meaningful minutes? What's going to happen with Klay Thompson? Is he going to play 35 minutes in his first game back after missing 2 years with Achilles and ACL injuries? And then on the flip side, the Lakers overhauled the entire roster. Now LeBron and AD are back, but how are they going to work with Russell Westbrook? This is going to be an intense game. you're going to have action on both sides of the court. And I think defense is going to be the name of the game. So I'd play under 230.5 like you. So much uncertainty, though. What do I do with the points? I'm not laying them. Maybe I'd consider taking them. Number 2, the good word. The odds are 12-1 that the United States and Europe will tie at next month's Ryder Cup, which will be played at Whistling Straits in Kohler, Wisconsin.
The word is sister.
Ah.
As in kissing your sister.
Not as in sledge.
No one wants to do that. Sister Sledge, great hairband there. No one wants to kiss their sister. You may want to listen to Sister Sledge, but no one wants to kiss their sister, and no one wants to go to the window and bet on 12-1 odds for a tie at the Ryder Cup. You're a better American than that. Go back to red, white, and blue, and then see what happens. Remember this word.
Hold on. Who are you to yell at everyone for being good and bad Americans after what you just did with the Olympics?
I mean, come on. I will sing the Star-Spangled Banner with my hand over my heart here right now. But remember this word, sister, for the next good word as well, because it will tie in for me.
Ooh, a little bit of a theme today. I always like that. I am going to go with what can be called a word or also possibly a number.
Niner? Is that a niner?
9. Everyone knows this. Everyone knows you don't bet a Ryder Cup tie unless the year ends in 9.
Oh.
Because in the history of the Ryder Cup, of which there have been 42, we have only had 2 ties. And those took place in 1989 and 1969. Does this year end in 9?
Does not.
It does not, so you don't bet it. Now that is as rudimentary and as ridiculous of an analysis as it gets. But at 12-1, that is implying a tie at 7.6% of the time. We've only had 2 ties in 42 Ryder Cups, which is happening in actuality 4.7% of the time. So based on that, which again is rudimentary, we're not getting a great price for a tie to take place. Only 2 times in 42, maybe 20-1. You dangle that out there, we'll make a play. But if you dangle it out there, a lot of us are going to be making plays, hence why it's at 12-1. The best odds for a U.S. men's tennis player at the upcoming United States Open belongs to 21-year-old Sebastian Korda at 66-1. 66-1 for a U.S. male at the U.S. Open.
The word is golf club. And if you remember
that
my
one
last word, yeah, a golf/club is like a course or a country club. A golf club is the weapon you use to attack the golf ball. Remember my word was sister last time. Sebastian Korda's sister is Nelly Korda, who's the best female golfer in the world right now. She won gold at the Olympics and the LPGA Championship. He should have kept the golf club in his hands, Sebastian, and been a golfer like his 2 older sisters rather than gone to play tennis as an American, because we know American tennis players, at least on the men's side, not worth betting. They don't win anything.
All right. I'm kind of in agreement, but on a slightly different scale. I'm going to go with Austin, as in Austin Powers, as in this is not our bag, baby. This is not our bag at all.
No,
From
not.
1993 to 2003, United States men won 7 of 11 United States Opens, courtesy of Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras, and Andy Roddick. Andy Roddick was the last U.S. man to win this event. That was in 2003. This is not our bag. This is not our event. This is not a bet you want to make. If you're looking to win money on the U.S. Open when it comes to the men's side, bet anyone but the Americans, and you probably have a better chance of getting it done. By the way, the last man to win a U.S. Open from the Western Hemisphere. Do you know who that was?
Western Hemisphere?
The entire Western Hemisphere, not
Was it
just
a South
America.
American?
It was. An Argentinian by the name of Juan Martin Del Potro. Juan Martin Del Potro, I'm being told in the godlike earpiece, 2009. 2009 was the last time that happened. These aren't here for show, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for Sucker Bet, a final bet on the way out the door that we try to steer you away from because it's a sucker bet. What do you got?
Kind of playing off my fantasy football draft last night. I'm full fade on Josh Jacobs. So under 8.5 TDs for the season, under 975.5 rushing yards. The big reason why, follow the money. The Raiders, for some reason, paid Kenyon Drake $11 million guaranteed to be a backup. He's
What
not
are
going
they
to sit on
doing?
the bench. He's going to take goal line work and carries away from Josh Jacobs. And I don't think that offense is going to be that good outside of Darren Waller.
I will stay in the National Football League Saturday. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are laying 1 point at home against the Tennessee Titans. That's a sucker bet. Take the Titans. Tampa Bay head coach Bruce Arians said earlier this week it's likely he's going to sit all of his starters for this game. He did something similar in the first preseason game. They got blown out by preseason standards against Cincinnati, lost by 6. The wrong team is favored. This will close with Tennessee as a favorite. The Titans just smashed the Atlanta Falcons last week. They're breaking in a new offensive coordinator. They got to see what they have. that, as they would say, is that. He's Tyler Fulghum. I'm Joe Fortenbaugh. This is Bet. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.